What now for Hearts after a grim night in Graz? Is Daizen Maeda moving to Ipswich? And the Rangers rebuild? How's that going? Hello, I'm David Currie and this is the Scottish Football Podcast. All the news, views and analysis you need on Wednesday the 21st of July. Hearts need a Champions League miracle after a collapse in Graz.
Now Kyle gets the byline, it's four, and it's turning into the stuff of nightmares on what was supposed to be a fairy tale return to the Champions League for Heart of Midlothian.
Wouter Vrancken with work to do at the back after a chastening defeat. And is there about to be a big departure from Celtic?
Maeda's overhead kick! Oh, what a goal it is! A wonderful bicycle kick finish, loops over Butland into the top right corner!
Could Maeda be making the switch to Ipswich? And as Rangers prepare to unveil another new signing, how do we assess their window?
Every time he speaks about identifying with this club. And he's trying to put this over to his players, and I think it's working well.
We've got all of Scottish football right here.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sport Scotland.
Hello folks and welcome to the podcast. Today's guest, Cammy Bell, man of many clubs, just about half the teams in the Premiership, maybe more, who knows, and Scott Allan, who kicked the ball with relish, endeavour and skill for Celtic, Dundee and Hibs, among others. Let's start, gentlemen, with Hearts back in competitive action for the first time after what can only be described as a cruel summer. Losing out on the league on the last day of the season and then watching some of the best players and their manager move to Ibrox. And it all went a wee bit Pete Tong last night, Cammy, for them. 4-0, they lost in Austria.
Yeah, it certainly did, DC. It was a damaging defeat last night, especially the manner of the goals that they lost. To lose a goal from a long throw-in after 4 minutes just sets you up for a poor night, and they didn't react well to that. They had the opportunities, but if you don't put the ball in the back of the net against the quality opposition that Sturm Graz are, then it's going to hurt you. And then just the reaction after half-time as well, to lose that goal after 50 minutes, it almost kills the tie, and then they build on it, and within 9 minutes of that second half, after the 50-minute goal, you find yourself 4-0 down. So, yeah, a real sore one for Hearts to take. It was always going to be a difficult tie for them, but I think the manner of the goals is the way that the manager will be really disappointed with his team.
Yeah, Scott, I didn't see the game. I was at your game, St Mirren against East Kilbride, but apparently they looked all right going forward, but a bit of a shambles at the back.
Yeah, and I think the one thing that you can compare this season's side, I know it's very early on in the season to last year, is that it was built on the foundations of defending really well, and that was really glaring. I think when you look at the goals back, Cammy obviously speaks about it, losing a goal from a long throw. That is any manager's worst nightmare, especially with such a big game going over there. Before the game, I know people talk about Sturm Graz if they were a top side. I did think it was a tie that if Hearts could perform well and defend well at times, and if a chance came their way, take it, that they could get them back to Tynecastle and come through the tie. I did firmly believe that before a ball was kicked. But yeah, you're really up against it when you concede goals like that. There's no getting away from that, and that'll be the one for Wouter Vrancken that he'll be very frustrated about. Because that just comes down to set up. As soon as that throw in comes in, and once you're 1-0 down, Sturm Graz in Europe, their tails are up. And you didn't have to show huge personality. They didn't take their chances when they came their way. And then after that, if you could go through all the goals, and defensively there's a horror show for all of them.
Cammy, to quote Bananarama, it's been a cruel summer for Hearts. That last night just about puts the tin lid on it.
Yeah, it's a difficult one for Hearts fans to take. I think they'll be very frustrated after last night, because as Scotty said, they're so used to watching a team that are so strong defensively, and they just look really weak. Scotty touched on it, like, how do you lose a goal directly from a throw, not even a flick on, directly, just a long throw into the box, headed straight into the goal? That's unacceptable at that level. You're never going to win games, so really, really poor. And then you look after that, they had the chance. I think it was Kizaridis had a chance, and almost looking, I think if that's Lauren Shanklin, that's in the back of the net. So I think there'll be a lot of moments like that coming in the season ahead with the Hearts fans just looking to think if Lauren Shanklin was still there, the ball would have been in the back of the net. But he's gone now, so they need to deal with it. They need to find players that can step up. And the players let us down a little bit last night. I felt Scott is right. You know, you've got to be solid defensively when you're playing against top sides. They weren't last night. You get opportunities, you need to take them. So it looks like a real uphill battle. I think this tie's absolutely gone from them. I don't think they can get anything from this. So, but they need to certainly perform better next week.
You got to sympathise with the new manager though, Scott. He's been thrown in at the deep end. The deep end, it couldn't be any deeper, really, could it? Champions League qualifier, first competitive game in charge, and it's all change.
Yeah, a wee bit. I think at the same time, though, yes, it's Champions League, but the Austrian League isn't a huge step up compared to the Scottish League. I think sometimes you need to simplify it. If you go out there with a clear game plan and defensively you're solid, you can make it hard for the opposition. It really was a baptism of fire, and I think he spoke about that after the game. So I understand the stage is the Champions League, but ultimately you're playing an Austrian League team, where I think a Scottish team who's finished second last year should be competing a lot better than what they did last night. I don't think that's unfair to say that, and I think a lot of Hearts fans would agree with that. And they've had their preparation with their pre-season. You watch them, you go over clips, you see where you feel you can go and cause them problems. But that's all well and good if you can't do the basics and the fundamentals of defending. Simple goals, especially so early on in a tie, then it's an uphill battle, and the tie's well and truly away from them now.
Any positives at all for them, Cammy? Do you see?
Yeah, listen, they create chances, but again, it's all about putting the ball in the back of net. When you get these chances, you've got to be ruthless at the top end, and when you get to this top level, then that's where it hurts you if you don't put the ball in the back of net, because as I said, they lose that early goal, then they get a chance, a one-on-one with the goalkeeper, doesn't even hit the target. You've got to take positives that you create chances against a good team, but you know, they've got a lot to sort out, because as I say, defensively I felt as if they were very frail last night. And again, what shows me, when they conceded that goal in the 50th minutes, they almost collapsed for 10 minutes. You can't do that at the top level. You've took yourself completely out the tie by collapsing for the next 9 minutes in the game and conceding 2 more goals. So they need to learn a lot from last night, I think, and I think the manager will have probably some strong words about defensively how they managed to show themselves. They've got to be a lot better than that.
He said kill or be killed after the game, Scott, and he said, we get killed off, we just didn't take our chances.
Yeah, well, you can not take your chances and still keep the door shut at the back. At the same time, I think he may be referring to maybe a step up in opposition in his eyes. But for me, it's both boxes when it comes down to these sort of games. Can you defend well, and then when a chance comes away, especially away from home, keep yourself in the tie? And then at Tynecastle, with the fans backing that they have there, that if Hearts were to score early in the game, they would create some momentum. But I just think conceding 4 goals in the manner which they've done, it's just too far a reach for them, I think, to recover that. And then looking at a trip to most likely Benfica over St Gallen, so it doesn't actually get any easier for Hearts if they weren't to come through this tie.
Right, let's move on, folks, to the League Cup action. Plenty of games last night. Scott, you were involved coaching at East Kilbride. A dramatic game. Kilby 3-0 up against Premiership opposition. It finished 4-3 with a stoppage time winner for the Buddies. You must be heartbroken.
Yeah, I was actually really disappointed, first and foremost, for the players. They'd put so much in. Especially in the last couple of weeks, having the Saturday Tuesday, so there's been no kind of respite for us. Played some fantastic football, really brave, go 3-0 up, and then last half an hour, I think, when St Mirren got that goal back, with football, the momentum shifted. How we gave away the first goal was disappointing, because the lead up to it is something that we always talk about, how we don't want to play with the straight passes into the middle of the pitch, because it's the easiest way to press the ball. We then lose a goal from it, momentum shifts, St Mirren get their tails up, and I just think the pace and power of St Mirren in that last 25 minutes, and our boys were kind of dead on their feet the last 25 minutes, just trying to hang in there. But I felt that to lose the game was extremely, extremely harsh, considering the effort they'd put in for large parts of the game.
Were you getting prepared for penalties, World Cup style?
I hadn't even thought about the penalties, to be honest. People were more thinking 3-0 up if we can see this out. You'd have been into the next stage of the competition, so really disappointed, but at the same time we went there, we played our football, we went goals down, we still try to stick to the belief in how we want our team to play. I think even after the fourth goal for St Mirren, we had a wee chance maybe to get one just into it. Boy just couldn't flick it inside the post, and we'd have had a draw. But I did feel that to lose the game was harsh on the team, because they put a lot into it. And I think obviously you're a St Mirren fan, you maybe don't see a lot of East Kilbride, but you'd be able to admit that there's some really good stuff on show, especially from how we played football and some of the players that were playing.
Well, you beat Dunfermline, championship side, made the playoffs last season, made the Scottish Cup final, and showed you could really mix it with St Mirren last night. It must give you tremendous heart for the League One campaign. Yeah,
and ultimately we're still 4 players away from being at our strongest squad. I think that the big thing for us is we're creating chances, we're having a lot of control in matches, and to show you can do that against Premiership opposition and obviously Scottish Cup finalists in Dunfermline last year, it stands us in good stead. But at the same time, the bits we want to work on in the training pitch is how we look behind the ball when we're attacking. We haven't had enough time to do that, obviously, because we only train twice a week. That's something in the next week and a half that we're going to really nail down. But I think there's a lot of belief there in the squad. We've got belief in some of the players that we've brought in. This is a new squad from last season. There's a huge overhaul in players coming in, so they're still getting used to how we want to play. So there's some really good signs there with the ball, but behind the ball we need to get on the pitch and work on that, because we don't want to be conceding. As much as we're in a good game of football, we don't want to be conceding 4 goals against anybody.
Tricky night for St Mirren, Cammy, but even trickier for some of the other Premiership sides. You got a draw for Falkirk, they're in danger of not progressing to the last 16. St Johnstone losing out to Inverness.
Yeah, a couple of surprise results there. Again, Inverness being at home against St Johnstone, and obviously they got promoted last year, so they're in a good place. And you're right, Falkirk have been a slow starter. It's difficult to judge teams, I think, in the League Cup. It's so early. So again, some Premiership teams, of course, they want to progress, but the priorities might sit slightly different to get players game times. They'll be disappointed with the result, but there's a couple of other results, like Livingston winning 8-0 was just an incredible scoreline. And then Ross County have started really well after such a disappointment last season. I mean, nobody's seen them getting relegated from the Championship into League One, but they seem to have started this campaign really good and on the front foot. They made some good signings. So yeah, listen, positive signs for them, but as you say, a few disappointing results for the top sides.
Ross County maybe rivals for the League One title for East Kilbride.
I think there'll be a few teams who think they can go into the league and have a good season. I think Montrose have signed a lot of good experienced players. Ross County, as you say, will be favourites just with the fact that they're full time, and they were literally in the Premiership 2 seasons ago. So yeah, we have belief in how we want to play and feel that we will be able to go and win any game of football in the league, but it will be difficult. But we'll try our best to be at the top come the end of the season. But I'm really looking forward to League. I think League One will be extremely exciting this year. I really do.
Well, let's talk then, gentlemen, about Daizen Maeda. It looks as though he could be moving to Ipswich, making the switch to the newly promoted English Premiership team for a reported 10 million. He was quite a servant for Celtic. Maybe not great for the whole of last season, but certainly towards the end he showed proved his mettle again. He'll be missed, Scott.
Well, I think that's an understatement of the century, David. I think he's everything that kind of epitomises Celtic over the last kind of 4 seasons, just with his intensity, his running power, and most importantly in the last 2 seasons he's added a lot of goals to his name, and done more so than the split last year. He really came alive, and for me he was a catalyst to getting Celtic over the line, no getting away from that. So he is a huge loss. At how you replace that sort of energy and pace, and how good he is out of possession pressing remains to be seen. But I think he's one of the players that's going to be really hard to replace for Celtic. They didn't do it with Kyogo and the goals and the movement that he had up front. And I think they'll really struggle to replace Maeda's attributes as well.
Well, there was talk, Cammy, of Kyogo maybe returning to Celtic, but he's off to the US. And Celtic finding recruitment difficult.
Yeah, I've seen that, David. And again, yeah, they have found it difficult again. There's no getting away from it. The number of bodies that haven't came into the building, you would say, is just quite incredible. I thought there'd be a lot of signings, but there's not been. Daizen Maeda, as Scotty says, is going to be a huge miss. Can you replace him straight away? Probably not. It's so difficult with a player of that quality. But again, it looked as if that had been on the cards for a long, long time, that this summer he would leave the club. They're getting £10 million from his last year, his contract. So you probably knew that one was almost going to come around at some point. But there's no getting away from it. It's really difficult to replace your top players, especially the way that Celtic are finding recruitment over the last few windows. It's not been great for them. So it's a worry for Celtic fans that they're going to lose certainly one of their best players, and they'll have no confidence in the recruitment because it's not been great over the past couple of windows.
10 million, Scott. I mean, that's chicken feed to these English Premier League clubs, isn't it? Is that Celtic maybe be looking for more?
I think they would have done, but when you're in the last year of their contract, it's very hard to demand a lot more than that, especially when the player had already touched on last year that he was wanting to move. I think that's the reality in this situation. If Daizen Maeda's in 2-3 years left his contract, I think you get substantially more than 10 million. But at the same time, if you look at Celtic and the incomings, you're now reaching that stage where it's going to become really concerning about the players are getting in and what level of player they're going to get in. And it was the same, we've seen it last year. I'm looking at how last summer panned out for Celtic, and if you'd asked me in January did I think they would be in this situation come mid-July, I thought no chance. I thought Celtic did a lot of their work done very early, and to see only really Duran in the building, who looks to be a player who will affect the starting 11, there's no getting away from it. It's concerning from a Celtic point of view.
From a Celtic point of view, Cammy, they'll be turning their attention and their ire to the board again. Still no head of recruitment. That's since January 2026. Yeah,
it's quite bizarre, to be honest. As Scotty said, when you look at the mistakes they made last summer, the bother they put themselves in, the trouble they put themselves in, the pain they put themselves in throughout the whole season because of poor recruitment, being unorganised, you would have never thought they'd be in this situation again. We're mid-July, it's almost a carbon copy of what happened last year. The squad just got through last season. There's no getting away from it. It was a scramble towards the end. It was a great big huge push from the players. Daizen Maeda eventually found his form and got them over the line along with Martin O'Neill, but I just find it incredible that they're putting themselves in the exact same situation going into another season that's going to be challenging. And of course Celtic will look over at their rivals Rangers. Rangers have changed their manager, they're signing players, they're trying to improve, and Celtic look as if they're just standing still again. So I find it really bizarre that a club so big are making the same mistakes.
Well, you mentioned Rangers, Cammy, then. It's been a busy old summer for them. New manager, 6-7 new signings, more to come by all reports. A rebuild was required, and they've certainly not wasted any time in going about their business.
No, they've not. And again, I think it's key when the manager changes that so early on, and they get the manager in place who allows him time to bring in his own players, the players that he wants to work with going forward. I think that's key. There'll be a number of players that'll leave the building that maybe aren't required anymore through the change of manager. But he's managed to recruit really, really well. We obviously know the ones from Hearts, Shankland and Devlin that he's brought in. I think is really, really good business. I mean, anyone as a Rangers fan, Lawrence Shankland should have been at the club before he was and is now, but he's here, he's at Rangers. So I think it's a really good bit of business, even bringing the likes of Ross McCrory back, Daniel, all these guys, I think they all look really good signings on paper, but we've seen that before. They've got to step up to the plate, they've got to perform under pressure. When it counts, they need to make sure they turn up. It's the big games that count for Rangers, and I'm pretty sure Derek McInnes he absolutely knows what he's doing. He knows Scottish football inside out. and he also knows the club. So I think Rangers fans are really excited about the signs that have came in. And as you say, DC, I still think there's another 4 or 5 to come in the building.
Yeah, does it look though from what he's got already that they've got the potential to hit the ground running, Scott?
Yeah, I think Shankland's obviously a huge plus for the fact that for me he was the best striker in the league last year, and you look at his hold up playing in. He's ruthless in the box. I think he's the best finisher in the league. Now you're taking away Maeda out of that as well as competition, and the onus will be on Duran and Osmond at Celtic. You would imagine to kind of match his numbers. I still think the wide areas are a huge problem for Rangers. Still think that is they have to get players in, and players who can come in with real quality. At the same time, Finlay Curtis is now coming back, joining the squad off the back of a really good loan spell at Kilmarnock going to the World Cup. So you'd expect him to be a better player first and foremost, but actually full of confidence. And how will that look come the start of the campaign? Will he be able to force his way in as a regular? But at the same time, they have to get quality in the wide areas. That is a must for me.
Do you agree with that, Cammy? Talk of among Rangers fans, whispers that they'd like Czerny to be returning to Ibrox.
Yeah, listen, I totally agree with Scotty. That is the area. That's the key area for me that Rangers need to improve in. And they struggled last season. You know, they brought in a number of players, and they have done over the last few windows that haven't worked. They've really struggled in them wide areas. It's a difficult one, you know. I think to get a top winger that's going to play at the top level week in, week out, it is difficult to find. So, yeah, listen, you look at Czerny, I think he was a good player when he was at Rangers. If he'd been there longer, I think he would have improved even further with the club. So I don't think that would be a bad move if they can make it happen. He obviously already understands the expectations, because that's a big thing. You see a lot of these players coming to Rangers, and yes, they've got great CVs behind them. Scovolson's one that sticks in your head. You know, he's got an unbelievable CV. Everyone's very excited when he joins the club, and it just doesn't happen for him. He can't quite find his feet within, whether it's the Scottish League or whether it's just the expectation that's put on them week in, week out. I don't know, it just didn't work. So they need to find somebody. I think Czerny would be a good move for them, because we all know he can do it. It flashes of it at Rangers, and as I say, I think the longer he was at the club, the better he would have got.
Now, the last part of this wee discussion, I'll raise the name Lewis Ferguson again. Do you think that's a possibility, a probability maybe even, that he would come back to Scotland and sign for Rangers, Scott?
I just think the transfer fee will probably be out of Rangers' reach. I think if you're looking at it off the back of a very good World Cup, Bologna will see that. They'll know that his name's getting touted about, and for them it just raises the transfer fee. It just depends on how much Rangers would be willing to pay. I don't think they pay anything over 6, 7, 8 million. To be honest, I don't think, unless they get the money in. And Raskin was to go with the money that we're hearing, that teams are interested in him, and then maybe you'd be able to spend a large part of it on Lewis Ferguson. But I think have all players come start the season. I just think with wages and transfer fee, I just think it will be out of Rangers' reach.
You read about other teams interested as well, Roma for one, Cammy?
Yeah, listen, I agree with Scotty. I think all Rangers fans would absolutely love him to have him at the club, but in a realistic manner, I think it is probably just out of Rangers' reach at the moment. Again, Scotty makes a really good point that, listen, depends on what happens with Nico Raskin. Does he stay at the club? Do they get that big transfer fee for him? And kind of that, some of that be offset to bring in a Lewis Ferguson? Time will tell. I think it would be a brilliant signing for Rangers if they could make it happen, but I just think at this moment it's maybe slightly out of their reach.
Well, folks, I'm afraid that's all we've got time for today. Many, many thanks to Cammy and Scott, and thanks most of all to you for listening. Remember, we're here with brand new, shiny episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast, bright, breezy and early every day. So to make sure you don't miss out, subscribe on BBC Sounds and have push notifications turned on in your phone. Have a wonderful day, folks.
For everything you need to know about your team this season, download the BBC Sport app. All the latest news, goal updates, stats and scores, and insight and analysis. Just select your club to get the biggest stories and best content at your fingertips. What a result. Download the BBC Sport app for everything you need to know about your team this season.